Welcome, Hornets, and thank you for joining me for part two of the graphing of rational functions. In this um, video, we're going to be using question number 2 from the pretest from the chapter 2 test, part 2. And you'll notice, just like we did in part 1, we're going to start right at the beginning. So you'll notice right here, let me zoom in on it just so you can see the equation. Our goal is to factor this. So we're going to start by factoring out the 2, leaving us with x squared minus 16. In the denominator, I'm going to factor out a negative 1, leaving me with x squared plus x minus 6. Then I'm going to factor it completely again, so I'm going to take x squared minus 16, which I can clearly see as a difference of squares. Call it x plus 4, x minus 4. Then we're going to go to the denominator, keeping our negative 1. We have x plus 3, x minus 2. Now you'll notice there are no factors that are shared between the numerator and the denominator, and as such, f of x has no holes. In its graph. And there's the first question. It allows me to now go to my zeros. The zeros come from the numerator, and therefore there are 2 of them. X plus 4 equaling 0, and x minus 4 equaling 0, which is going to give me x equal to negative 4 and x equal to a positive 4. The zeros of f of x are negative 4 and 4. This allows me to go to the vertical asymptotes. The vertical asymptotes come from the denominator, and you'll notice we have x equaling 3, x plus 3 equaling 0. Let's do x plus 3 equaling 0, so x equals negative 3, and x minus 2 equals 0, so x equals positive 2. And we'll now say f of x has 2 vertical asymptotes, x equals negative 3, and x equals positive 2. Y-intercept. To do the y-intercept, we look back at the graph and we say, okay, x has to be 0. I'm looking at negative 32 over positive 6, which is negative 16 over 3. The y-intercept of f of x is negative 16 thirds. All right, our horizontal asymptote. Here we go to our long division. So we're looking at negative x squared minus x plus 6 divided by 2x squared plus 0x minus 32. And we take 2x squared and we divide by negative x squared. Our answer is negative 2, and we distribute. Positive 2x squared, positive 2x minus 12 distributed gives me 0 minus 2x, and you'll notice that I'm looking at a minus 20. All right, so we have y equals negative 2 as our horizontal asymptote. F of x has one horizontal asymptote, y equals negative 2. Now our left and right hand rule means that as we go toward infinity, we are approaching that horizontal asymptote. So the answer to the f, state the left and right hand rules, we do the limit as x approaches negative infinity for f of x equals -2. This is the left-hand rule. Then we do the limit as x approaches positive infinity for f of x. And once again, we're looking at -2, and this is the right-hand rule. Alrighty, now I'm going to graph before I try to find any additional limits. So I'm going to start with my zeros and vertical asymptotes. So let's put in the vertical asymptote at -3 first. Then +2. Make sure we label them. Then we do our horizontal asymptote. That's at -2. There's -2. Then I put in my y-intercept. This is approximately -5 1/3. So right about here. Now I've already taken the opportunity to find another point. That other point that I found was at -1, which I found to be a -5. And then the curve turns on itself and goes down. Make sure we label our 2 points. -1, -5. 0, -16 thirds. Then we have our 2 x-intercepts at -4 and +4. I can tell that my orders are odd. Notice that the power of x plus 3 is to the first power. X minus 2 is to the first power. So around the -3, if one side is going down, the other side has to go up, and it's going to go up through the x-intercept. And try not to be too sloppy. And we're going to do the same thing, but on the other side. Approaching the horizontal asymptote, then going through the 0, then heading up, labeling the point, and now I can answer my questions. The limit as I am approaching -3 from the left is positive infinity. Coming in from the right, it's going to negative infinity. Approaching 2 from the left, negative infinity. And approaching 2 from the right, it's going toward positive infinity. I now have my graph. I've labeled all of my points. The only thing I need to make sure that I do for clearly is y equals -2. So I have my asymptotes covered, my y-intercept covered. I did find an extra point. You may not want to do that. That's okay. I then found all of the pieces and put them together into my curve. So this was question number 2 from our pretest, part 2. Alrighty, this ends the second part of our video. In the third part, I will be doing the 2 inverse problems at the back. If you like this, please click like. And if you didn't, please put any criticism. Be kind, obviously. But if you have comments, please make sure I get them.